Hey, hello, welcome back to the channel. So, tonight I have the final volume in the Bill Hodges trilogy for you, End of Watch by Stephen King. This is going to be my full non-spoiler review. I'm going to let you guys know kind of a basic outline of the story, what I thought of the book in general, and kind of any kind of extra feelings on the characters and stuff. As I said, this is a no spoiler review for End of Watch, and I'm going to, even though it is a kind of a sequential, it's a sequel to Finders Keepers and Mr. Mercedes, beyond the facts that, like, say for example, I'm going to refer to the fact that the main character of this book is Bill Hodges, so you know that Bill Hodges survived book 1 and book 2 of the Bill Hodges trilogy, which you may have already guessed. So there'll be comments like that will possibly, if you're very, very spoiler averse, be a minor spoiler for the previous 2 books. There's one thing that you can't really get away from talking about with these books, with this final book, that will possibly spoil aspects of book 1 and 2 for you. So if you haven't read book 1 and 2, then I do definitely recommend this trilogy. Having now finished the 3rd one, I think it was well worth my time to read. It was, every book was interesting, thrilling, and had a great mystery and great characters. Or maybe less so mystery, actually. It had a great kind of thrilling crime story. So let's talk a little bit about End of Watch. So this is the section that is a minor spoiler for the previous 2 books. So the villain of End of Watch is Brady Hartsfield. The Mercedes killer from Mr. Mercedes is back after being brain damaged and put in a coma by Holly. You find out then in Finders Keepers that Bill has been visiting him and he's been in a kind of vegetative state, but also there's kind of there's a couple of moments that make you think that there's maybe something going on with Brady that are more than he says. And then there are rumours in Finders Keepers that the nurses have seen Brady do things he shouldn't be able to do. So I think, for example, one of them mentions that he turns the sink on in his bathroom, and appears to be doing it using his mind, telekinesis. So I was fully ready for some proper, like, Jean Grey, telekinesis, psychic ability stuff in this book, and in many ways I was absolutely not disappointed. Your main characters from Finders Keepers and Mr. Mercedes, Bill Hodges is the main character again. He returns. We also get to spend a bit more time with his old partner, Pete Huntley. Not much, but an increased role over the previous 2 books, which is nice because it's interesting to get that time with Pete. Pete is now, it's I think 6 years after Mr. Mercedes, I think, or something similar to that. Yeah, I think 6 years, and Pete is now getting ready for retirement when Hodges had just retired in the original Mr. Mercedes. So weirdly though, even though there's 6 years between the stories, Mr. Mercedes came out in 2014, and then Finders Keepers came out in 2015, and then End of Watch in 2016. So the books were only a year apart, which is kind of fun. However, I read them all in about a week and a half. I think, so with other returning characters, so obviously we've got Pete Huntley, Hodges' partner. Hodges, obviously the main character, and in a similar fashion to Finders Keepers, Holly is there throughout the book as his partner in the Finders Keepers agency, but we also get to see Jerome kind of return from in this time, instead of being at college, he's building houses with Habitat for Humanity, which is a pretty Jerome thing to be doing based on his activities in the previous books. I know that, so I've already started The Outsider, which is kind of a spin-off book, as it's referred to as a spin-off of the Bill Hodges trilogy, because Holly Gibney is in it. And I really, really hope that we see more Jerome. I think Jerome's an excellent character. I'd love maybe even a short story with Jerome after all the shit he's seen, pardon my French, in Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, and especially End of Watch. I think that Jerome is very well placed to be a really interesting character, and I hope that King comes back to him if he hasn't done already, because it's been 8 years since End of Watch was released. I haven't looked any further into it, but I would like to see more Jerome, is what I'm saying. Really loved so interestingly, I feel like Holly hasn't had much character development since Finders Keepers. So we see a big evolution and a big opening up of her character in Finders Keepers, and you can absolutely see why King fell in love with her, and he said that he just kind of couldn't stop writing stories that had her in, which is really fun. And I know that King doesn't plan his novels per se, he kind of gets that gem of an idea of a situation and then grows that out into a story, and he often lets the characters decide where they're going to go, which is why he said many times he wasn't sure how the Dark Tower was going to end and stuff like that, which is fun. And I like the idea that he's writing a story and then goes, I think Holly Gibney should be in this. That's fun to me, especially because Holly's such a great character. We don't get to see too much of Jerome in this one again. It's similar to Finders Keepers. He's away for a lot of the book and then comes home. Although we do get to spend more time with Barbara. So we got to spend a bit of time with Barbara in Finders Keepers, and we get to spend a bit more time with her in End of Watch. And in fact, you get a bit of time inside her head from her point of view, which is really cool. And it's really interesting to see the kind of central conflict of her character and how it plays out in the kind of the economic divide in the city. I really enjoyed that, and it's kind of an evolution almost of Jerome's thing, which is where he kind of does this jokey, old-timey black guy voice, and there's kind of that contrast between who he is and who he's joking to be, and everybody says they hate it. But he continues to do it throughout the first two books, and Barbara is having that kind of existential crisis with her race and her life and things like that, and that plays out really well, even in the short amount of chapters that chapter or so that you get from her point of view. There's also there was a character that's introduced in one of those POVs, a character called Derice, and I was desperate to see more of him. I thought he was really fun, and I think King had some fun with him as well, seeing as the kind of second scene that you see him in, he comes off completely differently, and it's a really nice contrast to how he's initially portrayed. So what is this book about, having just rambled about the characters I like for a while? So basically, as we have said, so Holly incapacitates Brady at the end of Mr. Mercedes, puts him in a coma, and then at the very end of Mr. Mercedes you find out that he's woken up. In Finders Keepers you find out that there's something going on with Brady, and that he possibly has supernatural powers, which is interesting because the first two books are completely devoid of anything outside of the crime genre. There's no supernatural, no science fiction, no horror elements at all. but when we get to End of Watch, the supernatural element is pretty front and centre. I don't want to spoil what Brady is doing, even though it is kind of revealed in some of the back of the book blurbs that I've seen. But Brady's still obsessed with suicide, and by convincing people to take their own lives, and this time he's kind of trying to do that on a big scale. And he's using some really interesting kind of supernatural means to do it. So yeah, again, this is a really interesting story that I thought was a lot of fun, and was genuinely really thrilling. And Brady, as always, is pretty terrifying as a villain. It's really interesting as well because you get to spend a lot of time in his head, where in a lot of books that I've read, you don't tend to... The POV of the, say in a fantasy novel, for example, the POV of the villain is usually very limited. This is something that you see a bit in Philip Chase's Way of Adan, is that he gives you quite a few of the POVs from the villain, and it lets you in their head, it gives you their reasoning, and they often say that every single villain is the hero of their own story, and you definitely don't get that so much from Brady. But being inside his head and seeing his kind of twisted reasoning for the things that he's doing, and also his delight at these new supernatural abilities that he's gained, is genuinely really interesting. So sorry if my voice sounds funny. I'm trying to be quiet so as not to wake the family, because it's pretty late at night and I'm going to be in the office all day tomorrow, so I can't take my lunch break to record a video. Sorry about the voice. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. I think on balance, possibly it's going to be a tie between this one and Mr. Mercedes for my favourite book in the Bill Hodges trilogy. I really liked the supernatural aspect, and I think that was super interesting. Although the originality of the first book and kind of the cat and mouse between Brady and Hodges was really good. Being introduced to Hodges was good, and I think that most of the big character moments for Hodges are in book one. So what happens to Janie, and his relationship with her, and discovering what's going on with Brady, and kind of playing that, as I say, cat and mouse game with him. And meeting Holly, all of that happens in book one. And while there is some development as the books go on, Bill kind of enters the series as an almost finished character. He's in his 60s. He's not got a lot of change left in him. And while there is a really interesting change where, like I say in my review of Mr. Mercedes, the big thing that he is lacking in that book is purpose. And that's what Brady gives him, is this purpose. And there's a lot of times where he talks about it in the books, that there are times when he should be angry or he should be scared, and he's actually excited because he has, this horrible person to catch. And he does that in all three books. So would I recommend that you read End of Watch? Absolutely, definitely. This is one that it's described as a standalone novel. I kind of feel like you need to read the first two books to really get and enjoy this. You could understand and you could have a good time reading this book without reading the other two, but I think that the experience is so much richer having read the other two. So I would definitely recommend Mr. Mercedes' Finders Keepers, End of Watch as a trilogy, and to be read in that order. Quite amusingly, End of Watch has preview chapters for both of the other books, which made me think it was a lot longer than it actually was. So I thought, oh no, I've got 70 pages left, am I going to finish it tonight? And it turned out that I only had about 15. So that was fun. Next up in the Holly Gibney-a-thon is The Outsider. I've held this one up already, but genuinely, I read the first few sections. They're not like chapters, they're kind of like bits, I guess, like I don't know what you would describe them as. The first few sections of the book, I'm like 10-15 pages in, and I'm already genuinely really interested in what's going on. I think it's a great setup. I've read the blurb as well, which I don't often do, but I feel like King books are usually quite good at not giving everything away in the blurb, and I'm genuinely excited to read more of this one, which I'm going to do the second I stop recording this review and post it. So if you've read End of Watch, then let me know what you thought. If you liked it, tell me. If you didn't like it, tell me as well. And if you like this video, then please give it a like. And if you didn't like this video, or you think I've missed something or anything like that, just put something in the comments, because I'm always trying to improve my videos, so any constructive criticism is welcome. If you've got a friend you're trying to convince to read this series, then please do feel free to share the video with them, because that will help YouTube tell YouTube that my videos are good and they're worth sharing. If that does happen, then that would be great. Thanks very much. As always, please subscribe to the channel for more Stephen King content. I hope that if you have had time to watch it, you've read the video I posted today, which is 7 Stephen King books that I want to read. I'm not saying that I'm going to read them right away. It's not like a future TBR or anything like that, but these are all books that I'm genuinely really interested in, and after having this month, I'll almost have doubled the amount of Stephen King books I've read in my life by having read 6 this month. So I've been really enjoying that. So if you also like Stephen King and you'd like to see what I'm interested in reading, then please watch that review and give me some feedback on it there as well. So thanks again for watching, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.